They say, like, if that was my kid, I would never let them have an adoption.
Those people that say that, they're wrong, because they would give their children up for adoption if they thought they would have a better life.
My name's Joanna. I am a proud birth parent. This is something that I'm very passionate about, and getting to share my story and listen to other people's stories, it's a very powerful thing.
So I'm Scott Cargill. I am an adoptive parent. I am also a birth father of a boy that was adopted when I was about 17, 18 years old.
I was pregnant when I was 15, and choosing to put up your child for adoption, it's traumatic and it's something I deal with every day.
So I'm Jackie. I was adopted at 20 years old. With relationships and even my adoptive family, they don't really like bringing it up.
My name's Andrea. I was adopted as an infant. I just think there's not enough people talking about it, and people's stories are some of the best advice that you can give.
Hi, I'm Scott. I'm an actor, and I'm 57.
Hi, I'm Sierra. I'm 22 years old, and I'm a stay-at-home mom and a YouTuber.
I'm Joanna. I'm 34. I am a work-from-home mom, and I am also a birth parent.
Hi, I'm Jackie. I'm 23 years old. I work with LAUSD, and I was adopted at 20 years old.
Hi, I'm Andrea. I'm a fashion designer here in LA, and I was adopted from Korea at 6 months.
Can I get my birth parents to the left and my adoptees to the right? My life is better because of adoption.
Culture was a lot different back then in Korea. If I stayed in Korea, I wouldn't have had any opportunities like I do here. My life would definitely be better, or is better off because of it.
For me, I would say, yeah, my life is a lot better. My biological mom, she had, 7 other children to look after, and the reason she had to do what she had to do is, times were hard. So I was able to be blessed with all the opportunities I got,
When I was a birth parent and I put my son up for adoption, I couldn't have given him the life that his parents gave him. And I think he was better taken care of than I could do. And then when I adopted, it changed my life because, we have a beautiful daughter. It really helped bring it full circle, and I was able to repay something that someone else helped my son with. So.
The answer is yes and no. At the time, I was 15. I was with a guy who took advantage of me. All I knew is I wasn't making any money yet. At the time, I thought it was the best decision, but sometimes I wish he was with me. Is that the worst mistake I ever made? You don't know. So I think only time will tell.
I completely identify with that. At the time, it was kind of my only choice, I would say.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready to be a parent. Now my child turns 18 actually next week, and has had so many issues with the adoptive parents not accepting him because he's transgender.
Oh.
Knowing that I could have been the parent that he needed.
Yeah.
Adoption hasn't made my life better. It's given me a little turmoil.
Birth parents should try to stay in touch.
I feel like it is important for said child to understand where it is that they come from and not feel that, they were just abandoned.
I was a little torn because I do think that birth parents should do their best to be in touch, if the child is ready, But a lot of times there's trauma that people don't really think when it comes to birth parents and what they're dealing with. You need to make sure that you are in the right headspace before you reach out.
You make
need
that
to
choice,
be you
yeah.
need to be the best person that you can be if you're going to be involved in their life.
Beyond that, just being in touch so that if you develop a physical ailment, it can be passed on to genetically. You want your kids to know those things. But I think that the evidence is pretty clear that having an opener adoption is better than a closed
Yes.
adoption.
I think for me it was better growing up having closed, because it made me really adapt into my surroundings and not always, like if I was a teenager had an open adoption, I would have, got mad at my parents, and now I've come full circle, and I think it helped me more being closed.
I have a hard time connecting with my blood family or child.
Actually, yeah.
I guess you could say I was blessed with the family I had because they were, I guess, a little bit wealthier with money, and my siblings weren't as, So sometimes it is hard to relate to them of, how different our childhoods were.
Well, with me, the reason why I was so, it was so hard for me to decide. It's not that it's hard connecting with my child, it's that I cannot physically handle that connection and not having him with me.
Yeah, and I have a very hard time connecting with my my blood son, my birth son, because we're so different, and a lot of painful things have happened between us. We really don't have much of a relationship anymore because of that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's nothing to be done about it.
When I think about my blood family, I mean, we're all so different, but my blood child, my teenager, we're on the same wavelength. Ever since I got to be able to start seeing him when he was about 6 years old, he came up to me, poked me in the belly and said, "God put me in your tummy because my mommy couldn't have me in hers." And I just cried, and he just gave me the biggest hug. And that, ever since then, we just had this connection, and we can talk about anything, and that's the best thing I could ask for. You don't always get that.
Oh man, I just don't have a birth parent to connect to. I've tried searching for her, but she didn't want to be found on the birth papers, and there was no record of my birth father. So I didn't want to ruin her life if she's trying to make a new life for herself. It's even more taboo in Korea. When I was 17, through my adoption agency, I went to Korea and got to see my birth hometown, the hospital I was born in, so I got closure that way.
Oh, that's
and talking to other adoptees, yeah. I don't need to keep worrying about the past. It's like I'm just focusing really on the parents I do have and the connections I make out of it, and that's what helps me heal.
I have felt guilt and shame surrounding adoption.
Everybody.
We all agree on this.
When I found out I was pregnant, my family had told me if I have an abortion, I will go to hell. If I have the adoption, they will cut me out of the family. When I went into labor, they would come into, the room while I was in labor, and they say, "I can't believe you're doing this." If that was my kid, I would never let them have an adoption.
I can tell you something else. Those people that say that, they're wrong, because they would give their children up for adoption if they thought they would have a better life.
Yes.
And
The
about
bottom line.
95% of those people, they're not mothers, they're not parents or anything. So
Right.
being a mother now, it's just, I understand, where my birth mom came from. She wanted what's best for me, period, point blank. And I don't resent her for that at all, and I never will.
They say, well, you were, you might have been given up, but you were adopted and you should have this full life. There's no problems. You're with
You should
parents
be
who love you.
blessed. Yeah.
You were chosen, not just given up. But I didn't realize until recently that how the shame and guilt formed of well, why am I depressed? Well, why do I still have turmoil? I should be thankful for everything. But Being transracial, it's like, I grew up in Minnesota, so it's very like homogenous, like very white culture. I wasn't alone, but subconsciously alone in my own being. You don't have that foundation of where you come from and your bloodline and history. I had no one to talk to, so it was constantly me fighting with myself of with the guilt and shame that came up in every situation where I felt emotionally insecure. Yeah.
Adoptive and birth parents should be seen as equal.
I'm only coming because I don't think I can agree or disagree. So I'm gonna listen to what everybody else has to say.
You know, birth parent or adoptive parent, it takes really a strong will from someone to, one, give your child up for adoption, but also open your home to a child that isn't yours, but you're willing to give them the home that they deserve.
Well, but also, don't get the idea that, when an adoptive parent adopts a kid, they're doing it out of the goodness of their heart. We need you. We needed you to make our family. And that's, it's not like, we're some sort of superheroes. You guys are our superheroes.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, it's true. We need you.
Yeah. And
our lives wouldn't be complete without you.
yeah.
And I think the child, at the end of the day, that's when they talk about the triad, it's child on top. It's all about what's best for them. So even if you aren't there to parent them, they're always in your mind, and you're always worried about them. How are they doing? What's their home life like?
How are they feeling?
Are they gonna lose a tooth soon? Like these little things that you think about.
You may not know your birth mom, but the fact you're able to sympathize with her, because I'm always afraid that my son's gonna grow up and hate me, and he might. I don't know.
I went through a time of hating, because it's that inner turmoil. It's like you're depressed before you can even internalize feelings, because it's that subconscious trauma. And my parents, they have the video of me coming off the plane, and to see them so excited, and I don't know how I got graced with these parents, but I feel like they were supposed to be, and I can talk to them openly.
I've been praying and asking God to show me a sign with the adopted journey, and honestly, I feel like you guys, you taught me a lot today, and I'm really thankful for that.
Likewise, yeah.
Likewise, yeah.
I'll give you a hug.
Just really, just everyone around. Oh my gosh. This is therapeutic.
Yeah.